So in 2009, you were cast on Modern Family. So tell us about the process of getting that part.
A year before, I got a call from my manager saying that Steve Levitan and Crystalloid would like to talk to me about their next project. I believe it was called The American Family or something like that. Anyway, I said, why would I want to talk to them? I'm not doing a half hour. They do half hours. I knew who they were, and I was very, impressed with their work, but I didn't want to do a half hour because I had done that, and he said, well, would you just meet with them? And I said, but Mark, this is one of those courtesy things I've never understood. Why would I go in there and I have no intention of doing it? And he said, well, just do it. Just go in. They're great guys. I said, well, you have to tell them that I'm not interested in a half hour, which he did do. So, their offices are on the Fox lot. So I went over and I went in, and they were, charming guys, really nice guys. And they told me the story that they had in mind. And it honestly didn't impress me that much when I heard it. I don't know how much I was even paying attention. Although, no, I was paying attention. But when you hear a story, if you hear the story of Modern Family, it doesn't tell you anything, really. It's just there's a gay couple. There's an older, the Latina, and then the uppie couple. So anyway, they said, I remember they said, would you consider getting on board this thing, before we write it? And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, I don't want to, as you know, I don't want to do a half hour. Well, this is not in front of a live audience, which did make a difference. It's shot like a movie. And I said, I'm not doing it. But, good luck. So I left. Oh, they said, when we write it, would you read it? And I said, be happy to read it. And that was it. And I remember saying, gee, they're great guys. Never gave it another thought. About a year later, I get this script in the mail, and it says Modern Family. I didn't put the two together. And then when I saw their names on it, I said, oh, this must be that thing they wrote. So I read it. And then I read it again. And I remember thinking, damn, this is pretty good. So I called Mark, my manager, and I said, look, I just read that thing, and it's good. Maybe we should do it. And he said, too late, they're out to Craig T. Nelson. And Craig T. Nelson and I go way back. We were always up against stuff. And I said, okay. Well, that kind of makes sense, the ABC and his history with them, and me saying I wouldn't do anything anyway. And so I said, okay. And in a way, I was a little relieved. I remember feeling a little relieved. Because, you're not attached to it. You're not emotionally involved. And then about a week later, he called me back. And he said, they're back to you, or they're to you now. I said, why? Craig couldn't make the deal. Well, I'm not quite sure why that happened, because, you don't know. But I think part of it was only a pilot. It wasn't sold for 6 or 12. It was just a pilot. And oftentimes, there's not a whole lot of money. They'll give you a quote, but they're not going to give you a big thing unless it goes. And Craig, I think, probably had been burned in the past where he says, look, it's a pilot, but I want to be paid like it's going to go. Anyway, whatever it was, and I don't know what it was, they came to me. So I said, make the deal. And I remember him saying, you're not the star. It's an ensemble. I said, that's right. Make the deal. I got a feeling about this show. So he, all right. They're not going to give you, the quote. You're not going to get your quote. I said, that's okay. I'll do it cheap. We'll get even later because it's going to be a hit. And then we'll get even. And then we'll get ahead. So, all right. So we made the deal. And I think it was right at the tail end of the thing, we got some points, which is it wasn't outrageous. It was like, I know I did one pilot with Jennifer Love Hewitt. I think I got 6 points because they were desperate. And this one, I didn't get that many, but I got points, and I said, fine. So then I had to start thinking of how I was going to do the part, which usually you think of first. But it suddenly dawned on me that I really didn't know how to do the part. I didn't know how to play it. And I couldn't figure out why. I thought, well, first I was a little concerned because, Sofia Vergara is so beautiful. And I thought, who's going to buy this? No one's going to buy this. And then that was, I quickly dismissed that. I thought, who cares? We'll see. But the idea that at this age, my problem was I don't know how to be this age. I knew how to be 30. I even knew how to be 40. And, but when you're this age, what I am now, it's almost like I don't even know what's appropriate. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know what my options are. I don't know. So once I realized that was my problem, then I said, well, just play that you really don't know, and you're going to, you're going along now. So that's what I did. And so far, so good.
When did you first meet Sofia Vergara?
At the table read. And that was really an experience because I didn't know anybody there. Nobody. I was what they call the get actor. In other words, I was the guy who was known. No one else at that table was known. I mean, I know Julie had done a little Boston Legal, but I never saw her. I never watched Boston Legal. Ty Burrell had done some things, but I didn't know Ty Burrell. I didn't know the names. I didn't know any of the kids. I didn't know Eric. Eric was doing pantomime in some garage in Encino or something. I didn't know Jesse, who was a New York stage guy, musical guy. So the reading started, and typically when I read these things, I don't make eye contact. I don't do anything. I just read it, and I try to give, because it's for the writers, So you're not performing. I mean, you basically want to give them the timing and the jokes in the right timing. So you got to read it. But as I was reading it, I'm listening too. And I remember at one point early on, like looking up, like, what the hell is going on here? These people are good. I didn't expect them to be that good. I didn't know them. And I thought, God damn, these people are all good. The kids are good. Everybody's good. So that was amazing. That was like, that reading was at a level that's higher than most first readings. Quite a bit higher.
So tell us about shooting the pilot.
Well, that was interesting because, again, we mostly didn't work together. It was the families are related but separate, and then get together at the end for the Lion King thing and all that. So, we had some great moments in the shooting of it. I remember, that scene where I'm trying to get out of the chair was very, very funny. And again, you didn't have to do anything. You just try to get out of that chair. It's impossible. I remember thinking it's going well. I remember thinking how beautiful Sofia Vergara was when they would take photos, and she would start posing. And I thought, oh my God, she's like a freak of nature almost, And that was funny to me. I had to find it funny because I knew that was about the only thing that was ever going to be happening. But and then I remember watching the pilot. They screened it for me by myself. I missed the first screening, and the second I went over to Lloyd and Levitan's office, and I went in a room, and they turned it on and left. And then when they came back, I said I'd like to watch it again. So I watched it twice because it's 22 minutes. So I watched it twice, and I remember thinking, this is as close to a perfect pilot as I've ever seen. And then I went to Hawaii, because I have a place in Hawaii, and I ran into, what name's again? Bob Egert. No, Disney. president. Eigert. I was just going to say I know him, but I can't think of his name. Anyway, he was with his family, and we were in a restaurant at the Four Seasons, and he came over to me. And normally, our relationship was, "Hello, Ed, how are you?" You know. So he came over and said, "Ed," and I knew something was up. And he said, "I just screened the pilot for my family," and I said, "Oh, it's pretty good, huh?" And he said, "It's the best I've seen in 20 years." So I knew it was going to be good.
Yeah. So talk about the style of shooting. You had said earlier you didn't like when there was the audience. So did you like the fact that this was single camera?
Oh yeah, yeah. I love single camera. I think all actors love. Although no, some actors love that live audience. I like it in the theater, but not in a soundstage. So for me, that's ideal. And we not only have a really good cast, we have a great crew. You know, the DP's great. Everybody, the way we usually use 2 cameras, you know, so that it saves time. We go very fast, which I love. We rarely ever work over 8 hours in a day. Every now and then, if we have a Christmas show and everybody, you know, sometimes that runs into 12, but then you're off for 2 days, you know. I mean, it's like the best job I ever had. There's nothing even close in terms of the way we work. And everybody stays fresh. So the level of ensemble acting on the show, I really think is, and I don't compare other shows, it's as good as I've ever seen. And certainly that I've ever done. It's scary good. I mean, I've been involved in where it's just flying, and I'm going, man, oh man, this is like outrageous. That's really fun. Yeah. You know, you got Ty Burrell and Eric, and Jesse's amazing. You know, I mean, everybody, the kids, Sarah, Ariel, they're amazing. Nolan is amazing. The little girl's getting amazing. So and the writers are great.
Talk about working with Steve Levitan and Crystalloid.
I mean, it's a joy, you know. I mean, they separate shows, you know. One is on the set, it's his show. He works with the director in the shooting of the show. The other's in the room with the writers. And then the next week it's reversed. So they're never together. And I think they like it that way. But obviously it's a better way to go. They're both extremely talented. They both have different ways of working, but both effective. I used to think that Steve's way was not my favorite way. A bit anal, a bit, you know, like, but that's just another way of working. You know what I mean? Once you realize that it's all for this end result, Chris is more laid back and gets at it a little subtle. He has subtle ways. So as it is now, I like working with both of them the same, really, because, you know, they just have different ways of working.
So describe the character of Jay Pritchett.
I don't know. You know, I mean, I think he's a guy who was concerned with his business early on, had kids, and then wasn't such a good father because he was busy with making money. And then, of course, that didn't work out. It's happened so often, which is why it's Modern Family. And now the second time around, he falls into this insane situation with this beautiful woman from Colombia and her child, her son. And I think now he's given a second chance, and he's trying to do better. But he's still not, you know, no one taught him how to be a better parent. He's just trying.
Do you have any input into Jay's character?
Not really. No, I don't concern myself with those things. You know, I'm a hired gun, basically. You know, I mean, I like just doing the acting, and I like the separation of church and state. I like that the writers write and the actors act. And I think that, and I've always believed this, probably because I don't like that other way, but there are lots of actors who go to improv things, and and then I don't know what the point of that all that is, but that can be a problem. But so no, I'm happy with letting them do that.
What are Jay's strengths and weaknesses?
Well, these are questions that are best, asked of the writers. I don't really know. I mean, in other words, I don't. I want to use that same expression, like he's not real. It's just words on a page. So strengths and weaknesses happen over each show, each week. One show he's messed up, and the next week he does something noble, and this changes, and I'm like the last to know about it. I see the script and I just I basically am an actor who goes scene to scene. I go scene to scene. There's no arc of the character for me. There's no where the story's going. It's already written. All I need to do is do each scene with the intention, or close to the intention, of what the writers want, and I'm okay. Because then it's constructed to give the illusion of a real person.
How much of Ed is there in Jay?
Well, it's all Ed, because I'm the one doing it. So and every actor, I think the notion that, some actors have what we've heard of as the method, where they have to feel something. I've tried every manner of acting over the years, and I honestly think that it's not your job to feel anything as an actor. It's your job to make them feel something. And that's part of the illusion of acting, that you don't show, or you don't reveal that it's not real. The illusion, the better the illusion, the more they will go along with the story. If you actually, I'll never forget one time I saw a movie. This is a good point. This makes my point. It was that movie, Billy Jack. And this is years and years ago now. I'm going to say the first Billy Jack was 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah. And I was there, and his actual wife was playing his girlfriend in the movie. And I don't know who the actress was. I don't remember. But I remember her. And she had a scene where she was heartbroken over a baby sheep was killed by somebody. She started crying in the scene. And it became more than crying. It became really hysterical crying. And as you were watching it, you got, there was bodily fluids coming out, and just, these she couldn't talk. She was garbled with this choking crying. And I remember thinking, ooh, this is awful. This reveals, this is real. I don't want to see real. I'm not in the fucking studio to see real. I want the story you're telling to continue. She's having a nervous breakdown. You don't need that. You don't need to see actual intercourse either, You do in porn movies. But see what I mean? You don't need that. You need the illusion of that. And the better you get at that, the better off, you're going to be. So I've always tried to be in that way a technician, but it's like you don't deny anything and you don't add anything. Your emotions will be there. You just don't know what they're going to be. If you could control your emotions, there'd be no shrinks. You know what I mean? So that I remember, you know, this is an interesting subject to me because I had a friend of mine once who was in an acting class, and he had a scene, and they're all the same. He got angry, and he exhibited this anger, and he was quite proud of it. And he was telling me over coffee, "Did you see how, you know, I really got angry, you know?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw it." "Well, what?" I said, "Well, I don't know how angry you really were, and you know." "Well, didn't you see that he threw things?" And so I said, "Come here, you have something on your lip." And he leaned in, and I went, slapped him right in his face. He sat back, and he looked at me, and I said, "Now you're angry. Now I see it." So you have to be careful. You know, see, you can be angry and not do too much, and you don't give away. In other words, you can show anger. You're not really angry, but it looks like you are because you didn't do too much. You do too much, and you go, "He's not really angry. It's all bullshit." See what I mean? Like, I remember when I was a young actor, I did things like, because somebody would say something, say something shocking to me. I don't want you to do it now, but you imagine you said something shocking to me. Now the camera's on you. Now I know it comes to me for my reaction to the shocking thing you said. And early on, I might do something like this. Now you can imagine my horror when I saw that. Oh my God. You don't need to show anything. You know, if you said, "You know what, I hate your fucking guts and I want a divorce," the camera comes to me. Fine. Not. I made the point, right?
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the cast a little bit more.
Sure.
You talked a little bit about working with Sophia. Describe Jay and Gloria's relationship to us.
Well, again, you know, I mean, I think that it's probably started out with her being attracted to the fact that Jay had resources, had money, was very, very comfortable, could provide her, because she was a mother, with a good life for her son. She probably found him amusing. And in that way, there was probably, you know, an attraction, but not the same kind of attraction that Jay must have had for her. As he said, you know, "I saw the most beautiful woman I ever saw in my life." So it's a very natural kind of, you know, they're providing something that's lacking in their lives for each other, but they're different things. And then I think over time, there's a love that develops. And then, you know, I mean, I don't know. I can only speak, I can't speak for her as to if she finds me sexually attractive. I think that might be a stretch, but I think that she'll say that. I've heard her say that. And I think, she's smart, and she's very kind. It's easy for me to say I find her sexually attractive. You know, who wouldn't? So, but I think it's the relationship, you know, is based on loyalty and you know, they look out for each other, and you know, these are things you can't really, it's hard to talk about those things.
How has your relationship evolved with Claire and Mitchell now?
Well, you see, that's the formula for comedy. It's one step forward and then two steps back, or it's two steps forward and one step back. I mean, it can never be resolved. Then you have the show. So every time you'll see a scene where I reach out to Mitchell and maybe admit something I did wrong, or say something flattering to him, as soon as he starts to enjoy that, I say something else then that throws it back to square one. That's comedy. So that's what has to happen. And the same thing with Claire. You know, there has to be, obviously, they love one another. But those problems are not going anywhere. You know, they're just changing. And then they come back again. And, you know, and so that's where the humor.
Right. So talk about how Jay is as a dad to a gay son.
Well, I mean, we had the one episode where Cameron's father came to visit, which I thought was very, very funny. He was a wonderful actor. That guy's a great character guy. I shouldn't even call him a character actor. A great actor. And we got into that. It was almost like the banjo thing in Deliverance, where we got into dueling laughs, where I said, your son laughs gayer than my son. Now, we didn't say that, but your son's laugh is high-pitched. No, your son laughs. And we start doing this. It's hilariously funny. And it's two straight guys trying to, you know, like I think Jay says, every time I think I've gotten better with this idea, there's some other thing that comes into my head that I just can't wrap it around. You know, it's the idea that his son has sex with another man is you can't think about it too much. You know what I mean? You can't process it. I don't want to hear about it. You know, there was early on where I used to go to the door and I would do what they call a cop knock. You know, I would say, hey, I'm here, and I'd bang on the door because whatever might be going on in there, I want to stop before I make entrance. And there was a show we just shot, hasn't aired yet, where we're in their house, we're looking for something. And Gloria says, look in their bedroom. It might be in there. I said, I'm not looking in their bedroom. Because he doesn't want to find anything in there that might be a magazine or a sexual toy. He doesn't want to see that. And I think that's funny, and I think that's quite common.
Talk about a little bit about working with Ty Burrell and Jay's relationship to Phil.
Well, Ty Burrell is just a marvelous comedic actor, you know. And I mean, I love working with Ty. And the relationship is very funny. And that's, again, like one of those things that I mentioned when I did Married with Children, certain things I love to do. I love working with his character, him and that character, because it's so annoying. He's so annoying to me and gets on my nerves. And so, you know, we just love doing that, you know. I remember there was an early scene where he came in and I was working on my toy airplane. I have a hobby of this airplane. And he was looking over my shoulder as I was doing it. And it was irritating me, you know, his silence, you know. And I said, you're making me nervous. But, so, yeah, to answer that question, that's simple. I mean, it's wonderful to work with him.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about your relationship with Rico and Phil and Jay's relationship with Manny.
Well, Rico, the actor, the boy, he's just the greatest kid, and he has a great family. They're all very supportive of one another. He has a sister who's on a show. He's like so happy to be on the show that whenever you feel like not appreciative of something, you know, like I remember we did a shot on that golf course, the public course on Pico, you know. And we're sitting out there on a golf cart, and I was in a bad mood. I don't know why. And I'm thinking, this course is a piece of shit, you know, that course. And the grass is burnt out. And he comes up and gets in the cart and says, isn't this awesome? And I looked at him and I thought, God almighty, it's so great, you know. I said, it is awesome. It's amazing. Put me in a better mood, you know. Don't complain. We're on a golf course. We're shooting Modern Family. So he always reminds me in that way of not even knowing he's reminding me, you know. And I work with him a lot in the acting aspect of things. And I've started working with Nolan too, only in diction, which is very important. most people don't, they don't even teach that in acting school. They teach emoting. You have to be understood. And so I work with him, and he's just the greatest. He loves it, and he's very quick to learn. The character is just an amazing character. I think that originally they wanted as the father, oh God, what's his name? Marvelous Spanish actor, little heavy set. Played the husband in the artist, the female artist with the Molina, Alfred Molina. So they wanted Alfred Molina, which makes perfect sense because he could have a son like Manny, right? The two, the combination, you have Manny. Well, he couldn't do it, or whatever his reasons, he didn't do it. And so naturally then we end up with Ben Bratt. And you'd think the offspring might be slightly, who's better looking than Ben Bratt? And but it works fine. It works fine. Those are those. Now you're trying to get into reality. It's not real. But I like the relationship with Rico because it's, again, we really like each other in the show, and I'm very fond of him in the show, and who wouldn't be? It's basically that simple. He's a great kid.
Yeah. So how do you walk the line between humor and the touching moments in the show?
Well, that, of course, is the writing. And that's tricky. Because if you don't earn, and I mean, David Milch speaks of this too, if you don't earn the touching moments by means of the proper setup, it's melodrama. And once it's melodrama, even if it a tear comes down your cheek, it's not good. And you won't remember it. And you'll be slightly offended by it because it's manipulative. So it can't be manipulative. It has to come, and I hate this word, organically, but it has to be carefully drawn up so that it, and in a 22-minute sitcom comedy, that's extremely difficult. But I think so far we've been doing a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are a couple of your favorite scenes?
I like, just off the top of my head, this may not be my favorite, but I like the scene with Jesse at the Riviera Country Club, the hole-in-one show where he revealed to me and to everybody that I did not get a hole-in-one. And that scene where I'm mad about it, and then I say something that hurts his feelings, and I see that I hurt his feelings, and then I try to pull it back and make it okay. That was a lovely scene, and just played so beautifully by him. And I think he is. I don't know that he's underrated, because I mean he gets plenty of attention, but that role he plays is not easy. I told him this too because Cameron is so marvelous as, he's just amazing. And I think that Jesse, because Cameron's won a couple of Emmys and Jesse hasn't. And so I had a little talk with him because I said, look, you and I have different jobs on this show. My job is to let everything kind of roll around Jay. Jay sort of watches things, and he's the patriarch, but he doesn't have the big comedy moments in the same way that Ty does and Eric does. Neither do you. Although he's had a few that haven't aired yet that I think they beefed him up a bit. But I said, what you do is very difficult and very necessary. And it's true. It's totally true. And, it's like Bud Abbott and Lou Costello. Bud Abbott was a genius, a comedic genius, but it was Costello that everybody remembered, for the most part. So everybody on the show, and that's the nature of a good ensemble, or any ensemble, the hope is that all these parts are a little different. Everyone has their own job to do, and they're all very important. to make the thing work.
You mentioned Emmys. In the first year that the show was up for Emmys, you took yourself out of the running for lead actor. Why'd you do that?
I did it because I didn't think of myself as a lead actor on the show. I mean, some people thought I did it because thought I could win Best Supporting Actor. I don't care about Best Supporting Actor. Why would I want to win Best Supporting Actor? I'm not trying to say the others shouldn't be proud that they won Best Supporting Actor. I've never thought much about a Best Supporting Actor award. The reason that I say that is because there's nobody to support on the show, right? I mean, I'm not supporting Frasier. No one's supporting Frasier. Nobody's supporting Jerry Seinfeld. We all do the same thing. On this show, on a true ensemble, there should be no Best Supporting Actor because there's no one to support. There's no star to support, is what I'm saying, right?
Right.
So the award makes no sense. I've never thought much of them anyway. You know, I never cared. The only thing I'll have to tell you really got to me was when I was the only actor not nominated. The only adult. They were all nominated but me. And I first I was offended. I was in Hawaii and I thought, this is impossible. And then I had to start laughing. You know, I had to find it amusing. I said, well, what are the odds of this? You know, it's like, it's crazy. And so I actually found it amusing. And they said, well, you pulled out of the best actor, and people didn't know where to put you. And I thought, I'm not sure that's it. But at any rate, and then you have to remind yourself, so often you do these things, that it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. You know, it's the silliest thing in the world. And I remember telling Ariel, whose mother, that's a bit of a mess. But her mother was very upset that Ariel had not been nominated the first year for anything. And she said, what can she do? She asked me this, so that she can maybe get nominated next year. And I said, are you serious? What do you mean, what can she do? Well, is she doing something wrong? I said, oh my God, Crystal, you don't do these jobs with these awards in mind. If you do, you're in big trouble. You just do your job. Don't worry about that stuff. So, and sometimes you have to remind yourself of those things.
Why do you think the show resonates with fans so much?
Well, I just think they connect on lots of different levels. Like anything that is successful in that way, I think people can relate. And because if they don't relate, then they don't connect, and they don't watch it. So and it crosses a lot of, for example, what was it? The Republicans love it, the Democrats love it. I mean, when was the last time? Probably Cosby, maybe. But that Obama's kids love it, and then Mitt Romney's wife, and they love it. It's really a remarkable cross. It crosses over a lot of boundaries, which I really like about it, because I like that it's a lot of people can appreciate and enjoy it. A lot of teenagers watch it with their mother and fathers, which is kind of a bonus, Yeah.
It's great. Okay, we wrapped up Modern Family. We're just going to do a couple more quick things. Wreck-It Ralph, you did a little bit of voiceover work, and you've done some other voiceover roles. So do you approach voiceover acting differently than live action acting?
Well, I haven't done a whole lot of voiceover work, but like, for example, if you, it depends on what they want. Sometimes they want a real character voice. And like, I'm going to do Nemo in June, the remake.
Yeah,
not
Dory,
remake,
Finding
but
Dory. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's Pixar. But I mean, I'm playing like this disgruntled octopus named Hank or something. but they want my normal voice, which is a real relief. Because oftentimes, you think you have to do something vocally, and it's a mistake, because your own voice has gotten to a certain point where, if the writing is good, it's gonna be okay. You don't need to, jerk it up and, like your own voice on steroids, I remember Olivier said one time that he was always interested in changing his features because under the mistaken thought that they won't know who he is. If Spencer Tracy never used makeup, and they were having dinner one night, and he said, "Larry, who do you think they think you are? They bought the ticket because your name's above the title. They're there to see you." But he said he was doing, I think it was Khartoum, one of those movies, one of those desert movies. And he had the makeup person, he said, "Well, now I want my nose bigger." So they made a bigger nose. He said, "Now my forehead, you want to enlarge that forehead, bring that up. And then my ears, I want pinned back. And then my jawline, I want to change that." He said, eventually, it was my face, only huge. He said, so the trick is if you're going to alter anything, just one thing. And oftentimes that can make, you can have a tooth thing or anything will change your face. One thing will change your face.
We obviously skipped over a lot of your credits. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
No. No. I mean, it's all one thing or the other, I've enjoyed them, most of them. I mean, you always try, and then you're usually not pleased. I have talked about a few of the things I have been pleased with, but usually you're disappointed. I'm not disappointed with Modern Family. Yeah. I wasn't disappointed in Married with Children, for the most part, over 11 years. And all those other things. Big Apple and John from Cincinnati. So, I've always thought of myself as very lucky in the business because I started late. Just to be able to be working as long as I have been, 35, 36, almost 40 years. And I'm still working. And to get this show now, when most of my peers, guys that started out with me, are not working, most of them, is amazing. I'm very lucky. Now
that you've had so many popular shows, what do your fans recognize you for the most?
Well, Married with Children, of course, I think still is the one that people will come up to me, for example, and it's all, of course, that those two shows are different segments of the population. And I have people come say, "Look, this thing you're doing now is great, and I love Sofia Vergara and all that, but Al Bundy." But now, when I live in Brentwood, everybody only watches Modern Family in Brentwood. So I get a whole other, Steven Spielberg will come up and go, "Oh my God, we never miss it." And, Helen Mirren came up to me one time and said, "Darling, darling, darling. It's so marvelous." Those are not things, those two would not have said that about Married with Children.
Yeah. So you've talked a little bit about this, but in general, what's your approach to acting?
Well, see, it's changed so often over the years, and I have so much more experience now that I almost don't think about it. It's like second nature to me now, almost, And there's so much that helps you that has to do with that. That has to do with a certain relaxation, for example, a certain kind of clarity and intention. Editing yourself really as you go along in terms of pauses, gestures, everything happens automatically almost now. which is a wonderful feeling, by the way, delightful feeling. And it doesn't always work that way. But, I mean, when it's working, it's like, it's a split thinking where you can watch yourself and go, whoa, what is going on here? And I remember, and you can Google this. It's John from Cincinnati. It's a scene with Bill, my character, talking to the bird in the cage about something that's bothering him. And I remember it was a 5-page rewrite on the day. Milch. I came in, what I had learned was gone. Do we have a cat of nine tails, some device of torture? Because Ed's going to flay my fucking back because now he's got to do this instead of that. So I went in the trailer, and when I read it, though, it's much better. So then I came out, and I said, let's go, let's start shooting it. And I really didn't know it. But I did it, and you can Google it. When I watch it, I say to myself, how did you do it? I don't know how I did it. And that's happened to me before, where you don't even know the next line, but you don't panic. See, and that comes from experience. And then it just keeps going. I don't know. You can watch it, though.
Yeah,
you'll see it's weird almost. But that's the fun of it, you know what I mean? That's like really fun when that happens. I had this conversation with Dave the other day. He said, you know, the HBO, he's got a development deal and all that, and then I'm sure they've had a conversation with him because of the way he works, which is problematic for HBO, because he rewrites on the day and they haven't seen it. He's already shooting it. They want to weigh in on it. They're paying for it, right? You can understand that. So he said, look, I've got 6 shows already written, and as I realized that I'm going to be unemployable if I don't change my method. And I said, I know. And I said, but I actually like the way you work because it's exciting. It's hard. Yeah. So does that give you an indication of what I think of when I work?
It's excellent, yes. Okay. Thank you.
Oh.
What would your fans be surprised to know about you?
Well, it would depend on which fans, I guess. I mean, I guess probably that I have a much darker side than they would imagine. In my past, for example, more of a violent streak that I had. Well, I played pro football. And I came from a town with gangsters and tough guys. So I had a history of you know, bar life and that sort of thing, which they, I'm sure, would be surprised at some of these things. All gone now.
What's your proudest achievement?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm still married. So, you know, I've only been married once. I love my wife. We've had our problems, of course. My kids would be right up. Probably my kids, for sure, you know. And then just being in the business as long as I have and being able to provide for not only my immediate family, but my siblings and everybody else is a big deal for me, you know. Right. Because I always wanted to get out of the system. That was like my main goal, you know, get out of the system, get out of it where you don't have to do these things if you don't want to.
Yeah. What's your biggest regret?
Oh, Jesus. I have regrets that would probably have more to do with behaviors in my past. Things when you offend someone. I mean, things there's a couple I could never mention. Behaviors that were not well thought out and done anyway, and people suffered. Those kinds of things are things you wish you never did and could have that back. And, but hey, that's all part of being a mammal.
What advice do you have for an aspiring actor?
I think probably, for sure, tenacity. Also, I think listening to yourself more than others. You know, everybody here is an expert on everything. I don't like that picture. Do your hair different. You know, lose 10 pounds. All that shit they tell you is meaningless. And just try to follow your own, you know, not that you discount every thing, but be selective in what you take in, you know. And also, I think it's important to be able to say no to things, you know, to what you don't feel is right, and say, well, I'm not doing that.
That's great. And where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, I hope alive. 10 years, let's see, I'm 66, 76. On a beach someplace, maybe. With a fishing pole. I don't fish. I'll just hold the pole. Instead of something else.
Excellent. Well, thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for your time today.
Okay.
It was fabulous.
Okay. It was fun.
That was great.